Hello and welcome everybody to yet another episode of Twice as Lively with Ken Heckenlively. That would be me, your host, with my cup of coffee, because we always have coffee and conversation, because that's what civilized people do. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Ken, is that your normal coffee today? But no, it's not, because as you know, I usually like to have a cafe Americano with a little bit of milk and a little bit of honey. But I'm having some doctor's tests today. And so before I go and have my blood drawn at 11:30, I'm supposed to fast. So that means no honey, no milk, but strangely, coffee is okay. So this is actually my first cup of coffee today, because I was saying, I'm just going to skip it all. But then I thought to myself, I'm really dragging this morning. I really need my coffee. And what kind of coffee do we have? We always have wonderful Pete's coffee. So get ready for that simultaneous sip. Get your beverage of choice. It is just a little after 10 in the morning on the Pacific Coast. So hopefully your beverage does not contain alcohol, because that just wouldn't be right. But if you choose that option, I'm not going to judge you, because this is the show where we don't judge you. We just talk. That first bit of caffeine in the morning, so good. Now that I'm more fully awake, I just have to say, I'm looking at you now, and there seems to be a little bit something different about you. Have you lost a little bit of weight? Did you get a new hairstyle? Have you been working out? Because you are looking very sexy today. And what better way to listen to my broadcast than to be feeling extra sexy? All right, so you may think that the big excitement this week is going to be the release of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, starring Matt Damon. But I submit to you that the fireworks are going to start earlier this week. They are going to start on Thursday night, when Trump is giving some sort of mystery address to the nation. So Trump, ever the showman, has something very interesting up his sleeve. He hasn't teased it all, although reports have come out. And I will go to less than reliable sources like CNN to try and figure out what he might be up to. And so from CNN, I know, not a reliable source. Never trust CNN. But, it's close enough that we can see if maybe they get a couple things right. So in this article, it says, President Donald Trump plans to use part of a primetime speech Thursday to discuss new findings about the security of American elections, among other topics, setting up yet another high-profile opportunity for the president to dispute the results of the 2020 election that he lost. And, speaking in the Oval Office 2 days ahead of the planned address, Trump affirmed the speech would focus on elections and a couple other things. Hey, maybe we're going to get that UFO disclosure. Don't hold your breath. I don't think it's going to happen. So officials said the speech is still being finalized, but Trump was expected to discuss several topics. He's still deeply mired in his conflict with Iran, with nightly strikes in the country, as he seeks a path to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Even as that war appears to be restarting, however, Trump framed the elections portions of his Thursday speech as the centerpiece. Two sources said he is expected to focus on voting machine security and alleged efforts by foreign nations, China, to influence elections. Okay. If you've been living under a rock for the past couple of years and you don't know what all of this is about, the betting odds are that he's going to be talking about those elections in Georgia, specifically the two Senate seats. And there have been some claims that he is going to assert that the elections of Senator Ralph Warnock and Senator Joe Ossoff, I always get that name mixed up because it's not that really memorable of a name. So forgive me. We want memorable names like Heckenlively. But he is going to assert that those are illegitimate, which would be quite an interesting turn of events. But getting back to the 2020 election, there is something that is quite interesting about yours truly and these claims of election interference. One of the great things that happens when I write my books is they're like little time capsules where I will make assertions about things which are not yet proven, and we get to review those and see whether they were true or not. So, this book, Behind the Mask of Facebook, a whistleblower's shocking story of big tech bias and censorship, by me and my co author, Ryan Hartwig. Ryan Hartwig, a very interesting guy, lovely man. He was a content moderator for a company called Cognizant, which got a contract to do moderation on Facebook. Now, what's really interesting about Ryan's story is Ryan was originally told that he would be in charge of keeping pictures of drug violence cartel off of the platform, but that and as well as child pornography. But what he found as he started there is that they were slowly but surely stifling the voices of conservatives. So political speech, whether you like it or not, tends to be robust. Claims made about the opposing party and individuals, they're the worst person since Judas, all that other sort of stuff. Just part of our political discourse. But one of the things that we developed in putting together this story is a question of, well, why is Facebook censoring the voices of conservatives? And it's because when you engage in a political election, you want to hear the best arguments from both sides, and probably also the most passionate and the most strident arguments. And then, you can figure out which makes sense. So the censoring had a purpose, which was to narrow the political debate, keep certain voices out, and affect an election. The question that we ended up asking at the end of the book, because I believe we completed it shortly after the 2020 election, is how much did those censorship efforts affect the election? And then possibly how much actual cheating was in the election? And probably the best source for these claims that there was cheating was Trump advisor Peter Navarro, who, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Peter Navarro, he's been our trade representative, just really a brilliant guy. I've always enjoyed listening to him. He's often on Steve Bannon's The War Room. But in the wake of the 2020 elections, he put out a series of reports of his view of the election. And so we included that in our book. And so I'm just going to read to you a bit from Behind the Mask of Facebook. If you want to pick it up, it might be a good opportunity to review the story of censorship at Facebook. But I'm sorry, I wrote the book, so I think I did a beautiful job at it. You may differ. I understand that. I'm sorry. Looking back at this 6 years later, I did a nice job with this book. Okay. So I'm just going to read this section to you. And so this is just going to be about a page and a half that I'm going to read. And I just wanted to sort of set the stage for Trump's address on Thursday night. So we wrote 5 years ago. Sometimes you just need to slow things down and take it piece by piece. Of all the articles and accounts I've read, I think the three reports put together by the White House Director of Trade and Manufacturing Policy for Trump, Peter Navarro, laid out the clearest case for why so many people are angry about what happened on that day and those that followed. This is from the introduction to his first report. At the stroke, so this is Navarro's report. At the stroke of midnight on election day, President Donald J. Trump appeared well on his way to winning a second term. He was already locked to win both Florida and Ohio, and no Republican has ever won a presidential election without winning Ohio, while only 2 Democrats have won the presidency without winning Florida. At the same time, the Trump-Pence ticket had substantial and seemingly insurmountable leads in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. If these leads held, these 4 battleground states would propel Trump to a decisive 294 to 244 victory in the Electoral College. Shortly after midnight, however, as a flood of mail-in and absentee ballots began entering the count, the Trump red tide of victory began turning Joe Biden blue. As these mail-in and absentee ballots were tabulated, the president's leads in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin simply vanished into thin Biden leads. At midnight on the evening of November 3rd, and as illustrated in Table 1, President Trump was ahead by more than 110,000 votes in Wisconsin and more than 290,000 votes in Michigan. In Georgia, his lead was a whopping 356,954, and he led in Pennsylvania by more than 500,000 votes. By December 7th, however, these wide Trump leads would turn into razor Biden leads: 11,799 in Georgia, 20,682 in Wisconsin, and 81,660 votes in Pennsylvania, and 154,188 votes in Michigan. Okay, so whether you believe that the 2020 election was stolen by the Democrats, what you have to admit is that those 2 facts are accurate. At midnight on election day 2020, Trump had substantial leads in 4 states, which, if he had won, would have given him a second term at that time. Several days later, after the mail-in and absentee ballots were counted, all 4 of those Trump victories had been turned into narrow Biden wins. This question has convulsed the country for years. This is what led to January 6th. This is what led to continuing questions over whether there were federal agents and provocateurs in the January 6th crowd. So there are 2 views of America, one held by the Democrats and one held by the Republicans. The Democratic view is that Republicans are insurrectionists. They're nasty on social media. They're so nasty on social media, they need to be censored. They don't want people to vote because they don't want to count the mail-in and absentee ballots. And third, when they don't get their way, they go and riot. The clearest narrative for the Republican point of view is number one, you muzzled us on social media, the new town square, so our voices weren't heard. Two, you manipulated election day rules in a way which allowed cheating to take place, and we believe that you engaged in vote cheating on a massive scale. And three, when Republicans went to protest this attempted coup, agents of the deep state engaged in provocative actions to turn those peaceful protesters into the so-called insurrectionists and then jail them for expressing their opinion as Americans. Now, as I sit here today in my office, can I say which version of reality is true? No, I can't. But what I can give you is the long view of history, which is that when claims are made, then they eventually get investigated, especially if people get talking about them, which is why I'm always so strongly opposed to any censorship. I will be the first person to say, I'm not sure what the truth is, because, in most of the cases, I wasn't there. But I know as a lawyer how to listen to evidence. I know how you create a fair trial. I know how you set up a fair debate. Now, in all of the books that I've written, I've been quite clear, in my opinion, that I think the Democrats and the liberal part of our country has been interested in not only shutting down, but in mischaracterizing the opinions of conservatives. The America that I grew in had a left and right divide, but I never felt that the left would engage in the type of tactics which I have seen in the past 10 years. I never remember the great liberals of the 80s or 90s shutting down debate. What I remember them doing is I remember them robustly defending their points of view in the court of public opinion. I think it's very interesting that one of our last great liberals, Bill Maher, has now taken to saying on his show that Republicans show up and debate him and take their lumps like a man, and he can't get any of the prominent Democrats on his show. I think that just goes to show you that the Democrats have really run out of ideas. Now, the Republicans have a lot of ideas, and because I am a critic of power, I am not unaware that powerful people will go where the real power is. So the money will chase the powerful people. So is it likely, even possible, that if the Republicans score a decisive victory in the midterms, that big money will come and try to get them to enact policies which favor them when they shouldn't? Yeah, absolutely. Corruption is part of any political system. But that's why free and open debate should also always be a part of our system, because if we can speak freely about these things, we can remedy them. So, what do I expect on Thursday night with Trump's address? I'm hoping for fireworks. I just don't want to hear something about foreign affairs, although it's very important and everything. I want the big question. Have we been a country which follows the rules for the past 10 years? Has it been that the public has gone back and forth on Trump? Did Joe Biden really win 81 million votes in 2020? That seems like a suspiciously high number to me, but I'm willing to be persuaded. So maybe we have been gaslit for decades. My recent book, Book of Secrets, will argue that since the Kennedy assassination, it is pretty clear that the intelligence agencies have meddled in the American system. So I don't know how long this has been going on. I don't know if I've ever truly been a conscious adult American and not lived in a house of mirrors, but maybe all of us need to keep asking the questions. Maybe we need to see how many funhouse mirrors are distracting our reality. And if we just keep asking questions, like Detective Petrovich in my favorite book, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, we don't have to be smarter than these bad guys. We just need to keep asking questions, listening to the answers, and then when things don't make sense, we talk about that as well. So I'm telling you, the great excitement is not going to be the Odyssey. It's going to be Trump's Thursday prime time address. I think you're going to hear a lot of fireworks. You're going to hear stuff about the elections. You're going to hear stuff about Iran. And maybe we'll even get a little bit on UFOs. I'm hoping. I'm going to have my popcorn ready. I hope you do too. All right, signing off here. I hope that this is not the best part of your day, because I hope the best part of your day is you having real interactions with people in front of you, not just handsome devils like me on the internet. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great day.